Good evening and welcome to the June 9, 2025 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Scott Loikitz and I am the chairman of the Zoning Board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this special meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, the meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube page, also broadcast on Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. Transcript of this meeting is also being taken using video and audio, so we need all speakers to utilize the microphones here in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it afterwards. Ms. Hans, please call the roll of members.
Vice Chair Zahn?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Millay is excused. Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Curran?
Here.
Ms. Chifo?
Here.
Mr. Feskins?
Here.
Mr. Chanchuli is excused. Mr. Nearing?
Here.
And Chairman Loikitz.
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Hans. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. Mr. Ball advises the board on matters of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on these applications. Jessica Sands is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Our board secretary works with applicants on preparing their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. The board secretary also does not vote on the applications. Also present are our experts who are hired annually by the board to provide input. Tonight we have Marie Raffet from Collier's Engineering. Also we have a special guest, Mr. Leiden from Burgess, who will be acting as our board planner for the evening. These experts are seated at the table to the right of the board and the public's left. They also do not vote on these applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in hearings tonight, but only a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Before we enter into executive session to vote on these applications, you will be advised of how many votes are required for approval. Each case will begin with the applicants or their attorney giving an overview of the application process to date and the variances that are required. We then hear from any additional expert witnesses the applicant may have. The board experts, followed by the board members, then may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Due to recent cases running excessively long, we strongly encourage applicants and their experts to give brief and concise testimony so we may get to as many cases as possible in a given evening. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. It's not the time to tell us what you think about the case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Please be careful as how you phrase your questions. They should not be preceded with a statement about the case. It should be a direct question to the witness. Also, before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important that our court reporter, seated back there, be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have a second opportunity to speak. And at this time, you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. We would also swear you in at that point. The public hearing is then closed, and we enter into executive session where the board members discuss the case and then vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but not normally be able to participate. I ask that each applicant and their attorney, if present, come up and give us just a brief synopsis of their testimony tonight, including how many witnesses and whether or not they think they can finish their presentation in 30 minutes or less. So we're going to go in order of the listed public hearings, but we're going to switch the order around after we get the summary from each applicant. Can I have 65 Fernwood, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Christine Faustini from Herald Law. Our application seeks only one variance for an existing condition, and it is a reconstruction plan due to seepage on the property. I think we can do this in 30 minutes. I have only the applicant to testify briefly, just to provide that basic testimony, and I have an engineer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, now can we have a representative from 235 Morris, please?
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, we have before you some bulk variances, some use variances. However, we were previously approved in 2020, so that might short-circuit it a little bit. We were planning on having our engineer, our architect, our planner, and then if you have questions for our operators, then we can do that. I don't think we can do it in 30 minutes, maybe about an hour.
Okay. And for that, I'm going to switch you from second to third tonight, okay? Sorry. And then last, can we get someone representing 3234 Twombly?
Good evening. James Weber of Alfonso and Weber on behalf of 32 Twombly. 10 minutes, no witnesses.
Excellent, Mr. Weber. You get to go second. All right, great. So with that, we'll begin the evening at 65 Fernwood Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. So I'm here on behalf of 65 Fernwood. My first witness is Stephen Chiarello. He is the applicant and the owner of the property, along with his wife, Margaret, who will not be testifying for expediency purposes. Stephen?
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Chiarello. Please proceed.
My name is Stephen Chiarello,
Chiarello.
Chiarello. And I live at 65 Road.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about your project.
So my wife and I purchased the house in 2022. We have 3 young kids. During that time, we started having some water runoff issues where our basement was flooding. And our existing patio started to sink and pull away from the house. And we hired an engineer and a lawyer to try and figure out where the water was coming from and how to rebuild the patio.
Okay, great.
Okay, so really quickly, I have just a quick photo to give the board an idea as to what's
Please.
going on with the patio. So I'd like to have this marked as Exhibit A.
We'll call it A1.
A1, that's fine. Can you just pass those around? Real fast. So I've marked an Exhibit A1. Are you familiar with this picture?
I am.
Did you take this picture?
Yes, I did.
When did you take this picture?
This morning.
Okay, would you explain to the board what this shows?
So this shows our current patio and retaining wall. And you can see that the patio is deteriorating and the steps are falling apart and the columns are about to fall down.
Okay, now, you mentioned that you purchased this property in 2022. Was this patio already there in 2022?
Yes, it was.
Okay, can you describe quickly for the board what is currently constructed on your property?
A single-family house with an attached 3-car garage and this patio.
Is there a driveway?
Yes, there is.
Is there anything else of like physical structure on the property?
No,
All right, have you added anything onto the property in terms of physical structure?
no, we have not.
And so we are here tonight for a variance application due to maximum lot coverage. This is an existing condition currently on your property. When did you discover or first learn that there was a situation where your property, your patio exceeded maximum lot coverage?
When we hired the engineer to determine where the water was coming from and then plans to rebuild the patio. So I would say February of last year.
Okay, so it was after you started having the water seepage problems?
Correct, yeah.
All right. Those are all the questions I have. If any of the board members have questions.
Thank you so much. Board experts, any questions for this witness?
I'm thinking that
ahead. Is your engineer going to talk about some of the drainage improvements that are
Yes,
going to happen?
yes.
Then I'll hold my comments.
Great.
I have no questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Questions from the board for this witness? Seeing none. Questions from the public for this witness? Seeing none. All right, next witness, please. Thank you.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Michael Fisher, Fisher. Dykstra Walker Design Group is the firm I'm employed with. Professional engineer. My engineering background is such that I have a Bachelor's of Science through NJIT. Graduated in 2011, sat for and passed the engineering exam in 2014, and my license is in good standing since.
License in New Jersey, I imagine?
That is correct.
Any questions?
Can you hold on,
Yeah.
can you turn that mic back on? Somebody turned it off, but they can't hear you. On the front of the, bottom of the mic. Bottom of the mic? Where's the bottom?
Do you want me to repeat anything?
Just test it real quick.
Test, test.
Perfect.
Much better.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
We will.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, are you familiar with the project that's the subject matter of this application?
Yes, I am.
All right, please describe the existing property.
Existing property is located at Block 2202, Lot 9. Its mailing address is 65 Fernwood Road, I'm sorry. It's located in the R25 zone. It's zoned single-family residential. Property size itself is just under 30,000 square feet. It's 29,999 square feet. It's a conforming lot in size, width, and depth. Lot is fully developed. Again, as noted by the applicant, with a single-family home. It has building coverage of 13.9% and a existing condition lot coverage of 35.4%. Dwelling itself meets all of the setback requirements. In fact, it's the front yard setback is twice the allowed, minimum allowed.
Okay. Can you please describe the project that's at issue today?
Absolutely. So with the history of this, it was noted that there was some drainage conditions that were observed and through the failing patio and I guess conditions in the rear yard. Turns out that the neighboring property to the rear was under construction and discharging runoff onto their property, and it was causing a settlement condition in the rear yard and the patio. So client hired my firm to evaluate it and analyze how best to mitigate it. Roughly sometime last year, a engineering permit was filed for with the city, permit number 24-080. Plans were submitted that included a design of a French drain across the rear of the property to cut off the runoff that was traveling from property to property. And then that French drain was tied into a series of pipes on site that ultimately discharged into Fernwood Road and the piping network, the drainage piping network within Fernwood Road. We know this because the applicant had the on-site drainage system camera inspected, and it was determined that the pipes connected into the roadway system. Once we got the approval for the engineering permit 24080, We then looked to create a reconstructed patio that met the needs of the applicant. We acknowledged at that point in time that the property was over in impervious coverage, lot coverage. So when we redesigned the patio in the scope for which they wanted, we made sure that the coverage did not exceed the existing condition. In fact, it's slightly less by 2 square feet. So we're not exceeding what's currently there today. We're just looking to upgrade and repair what's currently there now so they can continue using it.
Okay. So you've displayed a drawing. What is that of?
That is the drawing which was submitted as part of this application. It's a 2-page plan set that was submitted. I'd have to go over and look at the date for you to clarify that for you. I don't have the date offhand.
I think we can stipulate that the board has all gotten copies of this drawing. It's just being displayed, for easy reference. Okay, so can you please describe the proposed improvements on the site?
Absolutely. The proposed patio reconstruction is going to take place in the same location as the existing patio. With that, they're also looking to reconstruct some of the freestanding walls around the patio, and then create additional amenities within the patio scope itself, which would be an outdoor grilling area, an outdoor bar area, and that's essentially it in terms of lot coverage.
Okay, can you please describe the drainage improvements?
Absolutely. There's a French drain that wraps around the rear of the property. You can roughly see that it's in a backwards C as you're looking at it on the plan. Again, it's intended to cut off any runoff that may continue across the property. It captures it and conveys it into the existing piping network on site that ultimately discharges into Fernwood Road. There's a series of other additional inlets that were added along the way to allow for capturing the runoff and conveying it into the on-site drainage system.
All right. The board engineer, I'm gonna try to get ahead of her here. The board engineer issued a review letter dated May 23rd, 2025. Have you reviewed that letter in preparation for this hearing tonight?
Yes, I have.
All right. In paragraph 9 of this review letter mentions a previously approved and constructed trench drain at the rear of the patio. Can you please respond to paragraph 9 of that letter?
Certainly. I believe I have at this point, but I'll just reiterate that has to do with that French drain across the rear of the property. That was, again, put in under that engineering permit that was approved by the city engineering department. And it's intended to cut off any runoff coming onto the property before it further impacts the patio area.
All right, and I think you testified to this as well, but just to repeat, where will the drain system discharge?
Everything on site discharges underground through the piping networks into the Fernwood Road drainage system.
All right, is that the same discharge location which currently exists?
Yes.
And the grading and drainage system that are being proposed as part of this project are designed to make sure that the water is directed away from their neighbors' properties or not onto the neighbors' properties?
Yes, that's correct.
And could you please describe the soil erosion sediment plan?
There's roughly 4,100 square feet of proposed disturbance associated with this property. We have inlet protection all around on all of the inlets on site, both existing and proposed, to capture any silting that may occur during the construction process, so that way it doesn't end up into any of the drainage system on site or downstream. And there's also silt fence proposed along the downslope side of the property to also capture any overland silt conveyance.
Okay. Now, I do have to just make sure I check all my points here. There is a variance that is needed for this application, correct?
Yes, there is.
And that has to do with lot coverage?
Yes, it does.
And that is because and that is an existing condition?
Yes, it is.
And that was a condition not created by this applicant.
That is correct, it was not.
All right. And you testified that you were able to reduce that existing condition by 2 feet?
2 square feet, that's correct.
All right. So we are here before the board requesting what's known as a bulk variance that is pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-70C. There are 2 subsections of 70C. One is often referred to as a hardship variance. That is a C1. Positive criteria of C1 is that we have to prove that this variance is being requested due to exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of specific piece or property, by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or physical features uniquely affecting a specific piece of property, or by reason of an extraordinary and exceptional situation. Would you agree that this application satisfies the positive criteria for C1?
Yes, I would.
And what would be your basis for that? Which aspect?
The second one regarding topographic relief.
And this is, again, we're here because of a specific problem that occurred with this property due to an adjacent neighbor's use of theirs, correct?
That's correct.
All right. In addition, there is the C2 positive criteria. C2 is often referred to as a flexible C. And what the statute requires is to satisfy the positive criteria for C2. It's where an application relating to a specific piece of property, the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced by a deviation from the zoning ordinance requirements, and the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment. Would you agree that this application also satisfies the positive criteria for C2?
Yes, I would.
And that is because this is a restoration project,
Yes, it is.
and you are basically putting back what currently exists
That's correct.
with just a few added amenities?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And these proposed amenities are typical of residential use and are permitted within the zone?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So therefore, are you familiar with the municipal land use law, purposes of the municipal land use law, which is NJSA 40:55D-2?
Yes.
So you would agree that this application satisfies Purpose A of the municipal land use law, which is promoting public health, safety, morals, and general welfare?
Yes.
Because it's restoring an area of the property has been damaged by water?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Then in addition, this satisfies Purpose C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space.
Yes.
You would agree with that. Would you also agree that it satisfies Purpose G, which is to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for recreational use?
Yes.
Okay. And Purpose I, which is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques?
Yes.
Okay, so this patio has existed for many years, is that correct?
Yes, it has.
So in that regard, it is your opinion that this will not disturb the zone plan?
It will not. That's my opinion, professional opinion.
Okay, and it is not going to be substantially altered from what is currently existing, correct?
That's correct.
And this property is well screened?
Yes, it is.
And these are, again, typical improvements associated with a single-family home?
Yes, it is.
And you testified earlier this is in a residential zone as it is, which is
Yes.
a principal permitted use?
That's correct.
Okay. So it is your testimony that the property and issues are really too singular and confined to have much of an impact on the master plan?
That's correct.
So therefore, it is your opinion that the applicant's proposed application satisfies the positive and negative criteria for both the C1 and C2 variance?
That is correct.
All right, and that's all the questions, testimony I have.
Great, thank you so much. Board experts, questions for this witness?
Yes, I have a few. Just some clarification. The walls that are around the patio and that proposed fountain area, are they, how tall are those walls?
I believe the retain, I always want to call them retaining walls, I apologize. I believe that they're 2.2 feet in height exposed.
Okay, so more like a landscape wall?
That's correct.
Than something somebody could sit on?
Correct.
Okay. And I know this is, I'm trying to get a feel for how much extra water is being collected by this enhanced system. You have the previously approved trench drain that that's along the back, that reverse C that you said.
Mhm.
Are those perforated PVC pipes? Is that in already?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
It's
is.
in already? Okay. So is that a perforated PVC pipe?
Yes,
in
it is.
there? Okay, so some of it is draining into the ground and it's
That's
not-
the intent. I believe that there may have been a detail on the plans, I don't recall. If not, I know on the approved plans, which I guess are of no help right now, but the approved plans by the engineering department, it was essentially a trench drain, or a French drain with a perforated pipe sitting in a bed of stone.
Okay. So then, any water that might be infiltrating into the ground, that kind of helps any excess water, that we don't have too much excess water going into the road.
That's correct. It allows for infiltration as well.
So some of I understand you're adding in some additional inlets, like in the south of the property, in the south side yard.
Mhm.
You're adding in a yard drain there. Is that an existing pipe that's already there, and you're tapping into that?
Yes, that's
pipe?
correct.
Okay. And is there any kind of sump at the bottom of that maybe would help with maybe grass or, any leaves that might get?
Currently, there is not, based on the design of the plans.
Would you consider maybe
Sure.
doing something like that?
Sure.
It helps with the longevity of the system, it helps keep the.
Absolutely.
Out of the system in the road. Now, would you be getting an additional engineering permit for discharging additional water into the system in the road? Or is that covered under the original engineering permit?
I believe it's covered under the original engineering permit.
Okay. Was there anything on that original engineering permit that talked about how much maybe additional water was going into the town system?
I don't know that there was a volume of water that it was designed for.
Okay.
Is that something that you would?
I would like to just make sure that original engineering permit for any discharge was.
I didn't get a chance to see the permit itself. I saw the application, but I didn't see the permit, so I don't know the extent of what was filed.
Okay, all right, I think that would be something important for us to see.
Marie, do you want us to add that as a condition?
I would like that as a condition. If
Okay.
the board were to approve that, I'd like to have some assurance that the town is aware that this is what's happening. I recognize that they're not putting any additional impervious coverage, in fact, they're reducing it, and that sounds great, but we are collecting more water from around the property and putting into the town system, and I just want to make sure that is
Okay,
something that the town was aware of.
great.
I think that's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Lyden,
Thank
questions?
you, Mr. Chairman. Our firm prepared a review memo dated May 28th, and there are just two questions in there I'd like to ask the engineer. The first one starts off saying, the plans indicate a total of 4 trees will be removed. The applicant shall confirm the extent of proposed tree replacement.
Yes, there was a review memo by the city forester, who indicated that the trees were substandard in terms of requiring replacement. So there are no replacements proposed.
So there are no replacements proposed.
That's correct.
right? And then the second question we asked, the plans indicate the existing air conditioning unit located in the southern side yard will be reset to accommodate proposed drainage improvements. And then it says the units must be sufficiently screened with dense landscaping or fencing. And I assume that's no problem?
That is no problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Those are the only questions, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Questions from the board for this witness?
I had two.
Jay,
One question
go ahead.
for the board here. Side yard setback for the generator, is that existing non-conforming, and should we just make sure to get that in now?
When was the generator installed?
Do you guys know when your generator was installed?
A year and a half ago, 2 years ago? Right after we moved in?
I'm just saying, typically it's, 15-foot setback, this one's saying 17. I just wasn't sure, since I would hate for them to have to replace that, but if the city approved it in the last 2 years, then I have no concern.
Where was that noted?
I just see a 17-yard setback on the engineer's drawing.
Okay.
If the city already approved the permit, then that's fine.
I imagine they got a permit
We
for
did,
it.
it was done through reputable.
If it was 2 years ago, Chris Anderson would have taken care of that, so I have no
Yeah.
concerns.
Okay.
The only other question is, has the water stopped?
It has stopped, yeah, we're now able to reconstruct our basement, which was flooded from all the water. patio is the next project in the bill here.
Allison?
I have a question. So was the city notified that water was coming from a construction site? I mean,
Actually, you should come.
I was gonna say, you want to bring him back up?
I did reach out to the city the city zoning or engineer. Somebody did come over and take a look at it and found that the neighboring construction site was in violation of not having any of the barriers or runoff. During all the engineering, we found out that they were going to put all of their drainage essentially right in our backyard, 10 feet up, and we got them to move it to the front slope, which is on Beacon Road. So this has been an ongoing,
hopefully it wasn't something weird. I mean,
I was going to ask if it was.
do you know what house that is? That 20 Beacon?
20 Beacon, yeah.
Do we, I mean.
That doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, I didn't think it sounded familiar either. I did look it up.
I mean,
That might be as of right, what they're doing in terms of construction.
So the construction,
Yeah,
the
otherwise-
construction is done, but all of the drainage and gutters and their drainage plan was the very last thing that they were required to do.
But it sounds
So-
like even if we had addressed it and had a condition, the city addressed it anyway. I mean, the city, that's what would have happened if we had retained jurisdiction and they'd come to us. The same thing probably would have happened. The city would have sent someone out there to take action.
I just feel bad if
Yeah.
they have to handle somebody else's water issue. It just doesn't, I mean.
That's essentially what we've had to do. We started, I would say January of 2023. We had, or December of 2023, the week before Christmas, we had 7 inches of water in our basement from this.
And the house went under construction after you moved in?
Construction started around the time that we moved in.
Okay, so
It had been approved before we purchased the
So
house.
there wasn't anything in your seller's disclosure or your home inspection that there was
No.
any water issues?
No.
And just to confirm, the trench drain, there's just the one inlet on that side of the property, right? And this is basically covered with grass right now. What looks like on this plan, like, you know, you see trench drains and driveways and stuff like that where sometimes they're open on the surface. This is only open at the inlet, and then it's basically carrying the water around. Is that right?
Correct.
I mean, I walked the property.
And if you look
I
if you look at the picture, the backyard is.
Yeah,
has
I
been-
didn't notice the trench drain when I was there, but I just wanted to confirm because, you know, it could, from this picture, it could look like any runoff is being collected, but it's really clearly just from that one point coming from that other property, right?
Correct.
From the neighboring
Yeah.
property, yeah, okay.
I mean, up to this point, the house was constructed in 2003. There's never been any water issues. I've actually become very friendly with the original builder who's reconstructing the basement. And the basement was originally carpeted, so we know that there was never any water down there.
Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, just to follow up on my cohort's question, so the French drain drains from the north to the south to one drain to the street? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Yuko?
Yeah, I mean, we'll ask all the questions I wanted to ask anyway, but just clarifying one thing. On the resetting the AC units, does that change the location at all, or is that just changing the slope? Or?
I think they thought maybe they might have to move them, but there is an existing drainage pipe that runs down that side, and I don't see that they would need to be reset.
Okay, because I just want to make sure there's no potential for needing a variance for if they're moved.
Okay. I don't see them, that they'll need to be moved, and you can't see them from the street. I know that there were some vegetation requirements, but they're not visible from the street.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher? Aside from the dwelling itself, what is the major driver of your lot coverage overage?
Property is approximately 1,600 square feet in coverage over the threshold. That's the 1.4% over.
Would you say it's the driveway?
I would say that it would be the driveway.
How many square feet is the driveway? Just
4,800 square feet, roughly
Okay.
4,900.
And how many square feet is the patio?
The patio itself will be 660 square feet.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the public for this witness? Seeing none. Okay. Do you have a closing statement?
Just very quickly, as the testimony has demonstrated, this is really a situation where our clients have had to address this because there was water coming into their home. So that's what's really brought them here. They are having to deal with an existing condition, being that the lot coverage issue. There was some testimony about the driveway. Obviously, part of the issue though too is that they actually have a front setback that's much bigger than what's required, and so then they have a driveway situation. But we hope that the board will approve this application. They are taking advantage of this, this unfortunate situation. They are adding a few recreational amenities, as been testified to. They have 3 children, 2 that are 6 years old, 1 that's 4, using the outside. They want to be able to use their patio and their outdoor area as much as possible whenever the weather permits. That's all I have
Perfect.
to say.
Thank you so much. Any statements from the public? Seeing none. Mr. Ball, can you tell us conditions and number of votes required, please?
Yeah, and we'll need to just finalize at least one of those conditions. First, we have our usual compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. Second, I know Marie mentioned the potential revising of the plans to add a sump, I believe it was.
Right, in the inlets, yep.
And inlets, okay, which I imagine is acceptable.
Is that both of the inlets, the existing trench drain and the new proposed inlet,
Any of
right?
those inlets that are
Yeah.
in the lawn, I'd like
Yeah.
something that kind of collects garbage down the bottom.
Yep,
You
so
know?
even the existing one that was put in like last year, right? The trench drain one?
No, I was thinking more of just the.
Just the
inlet
proposed
itself.
one?
It looks to me like there's 1, 2, 3. I see 3 inlets. Does that sound right? Are there 3 inlets that you're proposing to put in with this?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, with the new inlets that are being put in.
All right, so we're adding sumps to the 3 proposed inlets.
Correct.
Okay. And then our potential third condition is that the applicants will submit the drainage permit to the board engineer for review and approval. And now, if it contains a restriction, I imagine, and that the discharge to the street is in excess of what that permit allows, I'm guessing the board would want to see the applicants come back with a revised stormwater management plan? Does that
Yes.
sound
Yes.
appropriate?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think there are actually 4 inlets, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Not including the inlet at the top of the trench drain.
Come back up.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, oh, you're right. I
Yeah.
see one, there's one that I missed for some reason.
Rather than redoing it.
How about any new installed? inlets?
Okay,
Any new, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Any newly installed,
Perfect.
we
then we're covered.
have a request.
Yes.
I understand the whole, drainage, we have no problem submitting the drainage permit. And we totally understand that if, for some reason, this is more water than what's in the drainage permit, that the board would have concerns. What we would like to do, though, is obviously, no offense to all of you, but you have a very busy schedule, and we would like to get this done as soon as possible. So could we do it that if, for some reason, the drainage permit gets submitted and the water exceeds what's allowed in the drainage permit, can we install dry wells instead and not have to come back, or do you really need us to come back?
How about they resubmit a plan to the satisfaction of the board engineer in terms of compliance with the city's permit requirements?
I see
Makes
some
sense.
nodding heads. Does anyone
Makes
oppose?
sense to me.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
No
Sounds
problem.
good. Those are the only conditions I had, those 3.
You want us to do some type of screening around the air conditioning units?
If it's not installed already, that is required under the code,
Okay.
so we'll add that in as well, 4 conditions. This only involves a C variance, so 4 votes are required to approve.
Okay, so with that, we'll enter into executive session. Who would like to begin?
Yeah, I'll begin.
Nope.
I think, well, did I cut someone off?
Please, go for it.
Okay. I think this is a fairly simple one compared to some of the other ones we've had recently. They're repairing, restoring a patio, damage to no fault of their own, what it sounds like, which is very unfortunate. I think it's clear they need relief. I think the engineer, under the attorney's questioning, made a very good case for the C1 and C2 relief. They're actually reducing lot coverage by 2 square feet. I don't see any negative impact at all, given that this is replacement of what's essentially what's there. So I can vote in favor of this one.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Curran?
Mr. Yuko covered all the points. I'm in support of this. It's
Great.
pretty straightforward.
Anyone else? I am certainly in agreement with my colleagues. I think this is very straightforward and very modest request, and the fact that you're symbolically taking away 2 square feet, still appreciate it anyway. But I can wholeheartedly support this application, and with that, Ms. Sands, can you please, can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifa,
Yes.
Mr. Feskins,
Yes.
and Chairman Loikitz.
Yes. Congratulations, good luck. With that, we will now move to 3234 Twombly.
Yes.
3234 Twombly. Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Weber on behalf of the applicants, Mike and Jill Johnson, 32 Twombly. This application had previously been approved by the board, but subsequent to the approval, the Johnsons relooked at the architectural facade of the property and they wish to make a change. I have here a new exhibit. This would be I don't know where we left off.
Me neither. I can look it up while you keep going.
So, and what can be seen is the existing is in the upper left-hand corner. The original facade that was proposed is shown in the lower left corner, and the new facade is shown in the lower right corner. I have Mike Johnson here, and I have the architect Steve Kowalski if there's any questions.
And we are up to A4.
So this would be marked as A4.
Mr. Weber, I think we'd love to hear 5 quick minutes from your architect.
If I could ask
If you could
Mr.
swing it.
Kowalski to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter. Before I forget, I want to appreciate the board's hearing us tonight. I believe that this is the first time in the decades that I've appeared before this board that the board has had 3 hearings in 1 week. And it's remarkable, the dedication that you show to the city and to the citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Your comments are greatly appreciated.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matters the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Stephen Kowalski, Kowalski.
Thank you. And you were just accepted by this board in the April hearing. I imagine
Yes.
no changes to your credentials since that last
That's right.
hearing. I imagine we'll accept you back once again.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So if you could just give us a brief overview of the changes between the last design and the current design, I think that would be helpful to the board.
Yes, as Mr. Weber said, bottom left was what the board approved at our previous hearing. Bottom right is the new. What it came down to is there was quite a bit of time between when we submitted this and when we got to the board, and after revisiting it after many months, the Johnsons felt that the proposed was a little too simple. They wanted to add some interest, and also we're having trouble with the off-center front entrance. So what we've done, no changes to any of the variance numbers in terms of coverage and so forth. What we've done is take the existing door location, moved it to the center here, We've added 3 dormers to the roof line. We've added a slight bay window to try to de-emphasize, pull your eye away from the garage door, which they don't love that the garage door is front and center. And a little gable is added at the centered front door as well.
Can you just walk it down, because I can't see.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I can't see it.
You have this rendering. The only difference to what you have in your drawings is we're showing the prior
That's
approval.
right, it's in the existing one, I'm sorry.
Okay. But I can pass it around if you'd like.
And just to confirm, no changes to setbacks or height or overall FAR?
No.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
And no plans, that attic is not,
It's unfinished.
it's unfinished, no plans to finish.
And there's no headroom.
Yeah.
There's no space up there to use.
Excellent. Okay, so any questions from our board experts for this witness?
I do not have any questions.
Neither do I, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, great. Thank you so much. Questions
I have
from the
one
board?
question. On
Okay, please.
on this plan that you have in front of us, it's very, very clear the unfinished attic where the gables are. What's
Right.
the ceiling height in the back space behind the primary bathroom?
It tapers down to 0, but I believe where the bathroom is, it's already below 7 feet.
Perfect.
So it no longer counts as FAR once you get beyond that wall.
Thank you for clarifying.
Great.
Just
Mr. Nelson,
Just to
please.
be clear, the front gable doesn't come out any more than the front porch already is, or it does?
We pushed the porch back and left the gable where the front porch, where it was. So the gable is at the line that the porch was in the prior application.
Okay.
The remainder is pushed back to
Okay.
get that little definition.
And this might just be your artistic here. There's no excavation for the driveway to make it deeper? Just
No,
looks like
no,
that on a
that's,
wall.
that's,
Okay. All right.
yeah, that's the angle of the perspective. Shows more wall. No changes to the driveway, which is quite steep.
Any other questions from the board for this witness? Seeing none. How about the public? Any questions only for this witness? Seeing none. Okay, great. Thank you. That's probably the only witness we need tonight, Mr. Weber, so if you'd like to give us a summation that
We'd like to substitute.
probably runs longer than the whole of your testimony, be our guest.
We'd like to substitute A4 for the perspective that was originally presented to the board.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. Andy, conditions?
First.
What's that?
Public
Oh, yes, sorry. Anyone wishing to comment on this from the public? Seeing none?
So no new conditions, we'll just stick with what was in the prior prior approval.
That's correct.
Great.
And our prior approval, give me 1 second. But there was an FAR variance, Jim, if you could confirm?
FAR, building coverage, lot
Okay.
coverage, steep slope.
So 5 votes are required to approve.
Okay, great. With that, we'll enter into executive session. Who'd like to begin?
I can start. I can easily support this application. First, there are really no changes over what we approved in terms of the variances. And I think, as I said in the last hearing, I thought the modified facade of the house was an improvement to the prior house in that it was more in the scale of other homes in the neighborhood and also where the height of this home on the hill. But I think that this rendering, the newer one, is even better. I think it's just much more attractive. The other one was a little stark when you see the two side by side right now. So I think it's just going to be a really nice add to the street.
Second to all that, much more attractive design. So I'm sorry I had to come back just for that, but it's definitely a much better design.
Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, I too can support this application. I'm glad it's not resulting in any increases of floor area ratio, lot coverage, all those important terms, because sometimes, people come back and they realize, oh, I need to do this after the fact, so I'm very grateful that you haven't done that. So I can support this application.
Yes, I mean, it's definitely contributing in a positive way, right? The spirit of the DRO is looking for design excellence, and while I like the previous design, I think this looks even better More expensive, unfortunately, but better nonetheless. So with that, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
Jessica, can you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Feskin,
Yes.
and Chairman Loiketz.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thank you. Jessica. Sorry. Sorry about that. Wait. Broke a land speed record with that one.
I think you were maybe at 9 by the time you got done with good estimate. But we forced you into the witness stand.
Not that you don't already have your honorary architectural degree, but never hurts to hear from an expert. .235 Morris, let's begin.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Amanda Wolf, Dempsey and Sheehan. Tonight we have before you property located at 235 Morris Avenue. It's block 3307, lot 10. It is in the R5 single and two-family zone. It consists of 11,541 square feet. It's a unique property. It has multiple uses on it, and it has since 1967. Currently, it's improved with a woodworking shop and a two-and-a-half-story two-family dwelling. Both are pre-existing non-conforming uses that have existed since approximately 1977, when the property was improved with a two-family dwelling, a plumber's yard, a gunsmith, an automobile repair shop, and scrap metal yard. So we have at least limited some of these uses. And really, the sole goal of this proposal is to improve the appearance of the property by eliminating the existing wood piles. If you've driven by the property, you've definitely noticed them under the tarps. And the sole goal here is to get those tarps and wood piles into an appropriate storage shed. So in 2020, we received approval for a similar proposal. In that proposal, we were actually expanding the shop instead of creating a separate building. So we had some trouble with that, with some of the fire code requirements that we had to comply with and where the staircase would go, so we couldn't do that layout. So we're coming back to you with a revised proposal. It's smaller, it's less intense. In fact, there's only one condition that's not improved by the revisions. So in 1983, the prior approvals in 1983, the applicant sought and received variance relief for the expansion of the pre-existing non-conforming use. It was an addition to the shop. And following non-conforming conditions, there was non-conforming lot coverage, side yard setbacks, sides of the accessory structures, and rear and side yard setbacks for accessory structures. In 2020, we sought and received D2 and D4, as well as both variance relief for the construction of addition to the shop, a front yard turnaround space, and for an increase in the number of permitted employees. In deciding that we could have that requested relief, the board found that granting the requested relief would, and I quote, create a place to store all of the wood for the woodwork shop instead of keeping them in the driveway, thereby beautifying the neighborhood as described in NJSA 40:55-2. The board also found that the expansion of the pre-existing non-conforming use was justified because, and I quote, eliminating the outside storage of wood benefits the community. As the Supreme Court explained in Burbridge, the grant of this expansion is justified because the elimination of the outside storage of wood, which is an eyesore and potentially dangerous condition, is eliminated. That was from the board itself. So we believe this proposal can be approved for the same reasons the prior application was approved. We recognize this is a different board, but we think it's a very similar application. And additionally, the amended proposal is less intense than what was previously approved. So what are we trying to do now? In 2025, we're looking to construct a similar project with similar variances, many of which are reduced. It improves the appearance of the property by bringing materials being stored on the driveway into an attractive storage shed that will match the existing improvements. It also allows the applicant to more easily move products from the storage shed into the shop. So if you have my application materials, you saw a nice table setting forth all of the variances that have been increased or enlarged. I'm not sure if the board wants me to go through each of them. There's quite a number of them, or not. Okay,
No takers.
I'm sorry?
No takers.
No takers. Okay, so here's what we're doing. The minimum front yard to the dwelling, there's no change. It was previously approved at 38.2 feet. It will remain at 38.2 feet. The minimum front yard for the shop It was previously approved at 79.7 feet. We're proposing now 89 feet, so we're increasing it by 10.7 feet. The minimum rear yard setback to the dwelling, it is and will be 70.6 feet. The minimum rear yard to the shop is and will be 0.8 feet. The minimum side yard to the dwelling was 26.9 feet and 15.7 feet. We're actually increasing one of the side yard setbacks to 28.8 feet, which is an increase of 1.9 feet. The minimum side yard setback for the shop right now is 1.5 and will be 1.5 and 0.2 feet, so there's no change. The minimum combined side yard setback to the dwelling was 56.8%. We're actually increasing it to 59.3, so that's an increase of 2.5%. The minimum combined side yard to the shop remains and will be 2.3%. The maximum building coverage, we are reducing it from 54.2% to 47%, which is a reduction of 7.2%. The only increase in our variances is lot coverage, and it's going from 83.5% to 84.3%, which is an increase of 0.7%. The building height for the dwelling is not changing. The floor area ratio is being reduced from 107.4 to 95.1, which is a reduction of 12.3%. We are still proposing 3 parking spaces where 14 are required. We do have variances for the accessory structure area, which is 613 square feet, whereas 576 square feet is permitted. The maximum dimension for our accessory structure is 70.71 versus 24 feet permitted. And we also have the accessory structure located in the front yard because that's essentially where it has to be functional. We do have a lack of a garage, which is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, and we do not comply with the RSIS standards. So with that, that was a summary of our variances and a short summary of what we're proposing. With that, I would call Andrew Clark.
I just have a question for our board attorney. When we're looking at this, we're really, because the prior approval was not built, we're really comparing it to the existing condition, right?
Yeah, so the prior approval did have the condition that a building permit had to be granted within a year, which obviously it wasn't.
Right.
So that resolution basically lapses, and they can't necessarily point to those variances, otherwise they wouldn't need to be in here before us tonight. So,
Okay.
yes, from a technical standpoint, you would look at the
Existing conditions. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question to the lawyer? You mentioned that, I mean, there was two different applications prior to this, and one of them you mentioned that because you couldn't get, I guess, I said fire.
2020 approval.
Okay, what about the other one? Why wasn't that ever
That
done?
was the 1983 approval. We expanded the shop. That
Oh, you
was
did?
approved.
Okay, okay.
The only one that we did not go forward with was 2020, and that was because of fires.
Okay, so, okay, just want to check on that. Thank you.
Sure.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Andrew Clark, C-L-A-R-K-E.
Thank you, and you've appeared before us a number of times, including very recently. Any changes to your credentials since the last time you were here?
No, sir.
I imagine we'll accept you back once again.
100%. Welcome
Thank
back,
you.
Mr. Clark. Please
Thank you.
begin.
Well, what I don't want to do is repeat everything Amanda just said, because the numbers are pretty well established on here in terms of the particulars. So I wanted to just boil down sort of the core of what are we doing here and what's different. Functionally and operationally, nothing is different. Nothing is being expanded or changed significantly from the prior approval and from the current operation. The main goal, as was stated, is to take these outdoor storage racks for the lumber that's stored, the wood that's stored on site in a less than attractive manner, and create a better, more organized and aesthetically pleasing system to do that. Previously, what had been proposed was, and I'm making reference to the plan that's been submitted and is in your package. What previously was proposed was a very large addition, sort of filling in this whole quadrant of the existing shop right in here. And so rather than, and that was sized and big enough that the wood was going to be stored internal to the shop. What's instead being proposed are 2 modest additions to the shop, and then the shed, which runs along the northwesterly boundary. It's about almost 72 feet long and 8'8" wide. And will be positioned such that circulation can still go on in between the existing dwelling. We're removing the bay that projects out to allow for clear movement in there. And the doors of the rack will face the interior of the site. So this shed will provide storage for all the wood and also sort of automatic screening and a better aesthetic to the neighbor that's immediately to the northwest, rather than the racks that are currently set up there. As Amanda indicated, the variances that were submitted previously are either the same or better in this situation in terms of the variances and the particular numbers that are included. I think the one thing that changes slightly, well, the lot coverage, but the side yard, while it's an existing side yard on the left side that's non-conforming, and similarly the combined side yard, there is a little bit of an expansion with that minor addition that's in the front of the shop. So we're extending and expanding the existing non-conforming side yard on the left side. The lot coverage does increase slightly. The actual square footage that 0.7% translates into, I believe, is 85 square feet. That mainly is attributable to a change in the curb line. In the previous application, we were off the building a little bit with that curb line, and now we're going right up to it with the curb, so we have a little strip that was a little bit of non-impervious that's now impervious. We have retained and continued the proposed stormwater management, the dry well in the front. We're going to pick up the entire roof from the shed and just the front left roof leader of the existing dwelling, since it's proximate and can get us to the point where we're exceeding the requirement for storage based on the increase in coverage. That increase in coverage in total from the existing, not from the previous approval, but from the existing, is 933 square feet. And so the storage capacity we have in this proposed dry well would handle, it's not very well spelled out in the calculation, but it would handle a little over 1,200 square feet. So we're exceeding, again, what would be the typical requirement for the 933 square feet. We're handling 1,200 square feet. The board engineer, Mr. Fay, had made a comment about that dry well, and there were, I think, two aspects to it. One was the location, and one was to verify if in fact it's practically sized to handle the water that's proposed to be captured. So on the first point with regards to the location, it should be 10 feet away from the boundaries. The reason it is where it is because there's relatively limited space in the front yard area, and while we could put it beneath the turnaround that's proposed, would prefer not to do that because that will, we know, have some truck traffic and vehicle traffic in there, which will reduce and impact potentially the length and of the system, sort of the lifespan of that system. So having it just behind the curb line in that grassed area is better in that regards, though it is closer and very close to the front right-of-way line. So to the extent, I'm not even sure if that's actually a variance or not, or if it's more of a design waiver to have it positioned there, but I think we would like to keep it in the location that it's in. The second point about the practical sizing of it, I'll double check. I'm pretty sure that I did run through these numbers before, but to the extent that we're picking up a little bit more than what the capacity size for, we certainly will. I'll double check that and make sure if it needs to be sized up a little bit, we certainly can do that.
And Mr. Clark, was there a question about the roof drain? I think there was a question about the roof runoff to the shop is proposed to remain to be discharged by a roof leader drain to the curb?
That's right. We're not planning to disrupt or change that. There's a main line that comes down. It's shown on the plan that comes from the shop, collects the roof leaders and comes straight out and discharges actually in the apron right next to the curb line. So we're planning to maintain that as it is. We're planning to just pick up that front corner of the roof leader and the porch there.
And what about tree removal? Is there any tree removal proposed?
So there is one tree that's in the turnaround area. This was also proposed and addressed in the previous application. Is proposed to be removed. We had originally marked a replacement tree in the right side of the existing dwelling. I believe Mr. Linson had made a comment, and he did come out recently in response to this application to review the property again and review the application. He actually felt at this point, after visiting the property, I think his comment reflects that he thought it was not really appropriate, given the site and location, for that replacement. Of course, we are prepared to do that if he changes his mind or the board feels otherwise and still wants to have that replacement tree put in. But there are several very mature trees along the frontage that are substantial and provide a lot of shade along the right-of-way that exist and shouldn't be affected by this application.
Mr. Clark, can you talk to the on-site circulation, the use of those parking spaces that are proposed?
Right, so there's a space that'll be directly in front of the shed, and then effectively there's space for 2 vehicles to park out by the shop, which is commonly how that's handled now. Most of the circulation on site is primarily just operations with the owner's vehicles. There, of course, are deliveries, which in the previous application, we testified extensively about that, and that's why we have the turnaround, is to accommodate some of the box truck-sized vehicles and delivery type of vehicles, so that they would have the opportunity to turn around instead of backing out onto Morris Ave. There is some backing out that has gone on for a long time from this site, but it's better, and given the opportunity that we have now to make some changes, to have that turnaround space so that we can minimize that backing out. And there are some clients who do come to the site, and they would use that space in front or even the turnaround area temporarily if they're visiting to look at something or inspect some wood that's been delivered. But the tenants, which was one of the questions, the tenants who occupy the dwelling actually have permits for the municipal lot right up the street at the school. So that's where they park. They don't have their vehicles parked here overnight. There's one box truck that's associated with the property that does park on site. That was addressed in the previous application and testimony and the resolution. And the representation is that it'll be parked as close up to the shop as possible on the overnights. And that will continue.
And we've also stipulated previously that that truck would not be larger than a 25-foot box truck.
That's correct.
Okay. And can you talk about waste removal?
Yes, the shop itself has very little actual waste. The wood products that are used there are reused in various ways and or recycled, in a meaningful way. So that doesn't have any sort of city pickup component to it at all. There's perhaps a little bit of, just general office waste that may be generated from the shop occasionally. And that, along with the resident refuse and recycling, is handled via the normal city pickup. So they bring the recycling out, but then they come get the garbage. The garbage cans are currently underneath the porch, the front porch of the dwelling. There's like a lattice facade underneath the porch, and on the right side there's some doors, so they keep the cans underneath the porch. They're not even actually in sight normally.
And can you also discuss the upgrades to the HVAC or utilities that are necessary?
Well, the HVAC is on the roof of the shop currently and will continue to be there. So there really is no significant change in that regard.
And can you confirm the locations of any exterior or ground-mounted building equipment?
Well, the equipment, as I said, is on the roof.
Okay. So nothing on the ground?
No.
Okay, perfect. And we had previously stipulated that all exterior mechanical equipment should be located on the rooftop, so that's why we did that this time.
That's correct.
And that's all I have for you, Mr. Clark.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Board experts, what questions do you have for this witness?
Okay, so we talked about the seepage pit, and I think it's just a best practices that it's up near that it's off of the property line, but I understand that the constraints that you have on the
Right.
property. I take no exception to leaving it where it is. It's far enough away from the road.
Okay.
There's enough space there, so I don't have a problem with that. You mentioned that, when I was reviewing the calculations for the seepage pit, I thought you were taking the whole entire house and the
Right,
shed.
I thought that might be the case, right.
That was what it was, so.
So we're taking the shed and
Right.
then one roof leader from the house just to get to the point where we're managing a sufficient amount of water that we're bringing the profile down a little.
Okay, so there's gonna be two things that you're gonna be doing. You're going to be making sure that you are capturing at least 933 square feet of water, because
Correct.
that's what you're adding. But you're also going to make sure that you are able to hold whatever water that you are putting into it.
Right, I'll re-verify the sizing of the dry well to confirm that the amount of roof we're picking up on the dwelling isn't actually pushing us over our storage capacity.
Okay,
And if need be, if it can't be avoided that there's a certain area that, and I misjudged it, then we'll size up the dry well accordingly.
okay, all right, that's good. Are there any lighting proposed for the new building in back?
There's no new lighting, so the lighting that exists on site today and has existed for a long time will remain as it is. There's no new lighting proposed.
Okay. So the turnaround spot in the front is not meant for parking?
Correct.
If somebody parks there, it's sort of an accident?
Yeah, or during daytime operation, a temporary, a customer might pull in and park there, because it's there, but it'll be a short-lived thing. In fact, the intent to not use that as a parking space is part of why we had in the resolution stipulation that the truck that they own will be parked up the driveway very close to the shop.
Okay. Talked about the trash and recycling. Can you talk about the increase of employees from 4 to 5, and maybe how we would be addressing that?
No, we're actually not increasing the number of employees. That was a vestige of our prior approval.
Oh, okay. So you're at 4 employees then, and it's going to remain that way?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, okay. Are you putting any additional signage out front at all?
I was just gonna bring that up if you didn't catch it, because I remember you did ask about the signage and I didn't mention it, but in the front, right next to where the dry well is, I have called out on there, all we're proposing is an ordinary residential lamppost with the building, the address number on there. And that was part of a discussion that we had in the prior approval, that there really wasn't much of an appetite for any kind of signage in the front for the shop. And we don't feel the need or interest in bringing that forward. I think that people that are looking for this site typically have either been here before or know where it is, and they really just need the address. They're not, it's not like you get walk-in customers for the millworks necessarily.
All right, that's all I have.
Can I interrupt for one question? Because
Please, Tom.
you're addressing some of the stuff. This was, we spent a lot of time doing conditions last time you were here. I remember that very well. And you've mentioned some of them, but I just want to ask, could we add conditions 8 through 16 in the 2020 resolution to this current resolution? I don't know if you've all read them, but
Our
they're,
planner will address that actually in his testimony.
okay. Okay, because I remember we spent a lot of time with them. And honestly, I think about this site every time I drive by, and after a year passed and hadn't done anything, they're coming back, I just don't know when. So just to make sure we don't have to.
Here we are.
Here we are. So and like I said, we spent a lot of time just to make sure that they're addressed again.
Just as a board member who wasn't here in 2020, I would like to hear, that testimony. I think that's important, as opposed to just reading it. So the planner's going to speak to it is great. I do have one question as well related to the stormwater collection, and I realize there's limited spaces for collection here, but is there any prior stormwater management on this site? Was there any?
Other than the roof leaders that are brought to the curb, no.
Okay. So,
There's no other dry wells or other management facilities of any sort on the property.
75% lot coverage now, going to 95%. And 75, 75% of 11,000 is like 8,000 square feet of lot coverage. And so I'm not looking at just what's added, I'm kind of looking at the whole lot coverage. Are there any stormwater issues? Is there any ponding on the site? Is there any, existing runoff to the neighbors that this system should be larger?
Not that I'm aware of. In the rear, the site behind us actually grades slightly towards us. It's a little bit higher and it grades towards the back of the
gardens.
building. All of this in the front is really, it's very gently graded. It's fairly flat. I mean, I think the owners would probably know whether there were a couple of bird bath locations, but, the grades very modestly move towards the street. And then, the roof leaders from the shop come out to the street. But I'm not aware, and I didn't see any signs in the field of any erosion or staining or things that I usually look for in terms of, problematic stormwater issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we take any other questions from the board members, Mr. Lyon, do you have any questions, or are you saving your ammo for the planner?
No, we did a memo dated June 3rd, Mr. Chairman, and there are really two questions, lighting and signage, and they've both been asked and answered.
All right, great.
So I don't have any questions.
Thank you. So I'll open it back up to
One simple question.
Jay.
The last one didn't get approved. Can this one be
The
built?
last one was approved.
I'm sorry, the last one didn't get built.
Correct.
Correct.
Can this one get built?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Curran.
Tell me a little bit about the size of the shed, and the need for it to be 70 feet, and a half, which kind of makes the lot coverage and accessory structure minimum front yard
Right.
higher. I mean,
Right.
by a couple feet, right?
Yeah, and we worked to try to see if we could get that front yard to conform, but the issue is the separation that we need between the shop in the back. You need to have at least 10 feet, so that sort of drove the positioning of it and ended up that we couldn't really avoid that little bit of front yard. In terms of the sizing, I don't like to often do this, but I have to plead a little bit of ignorance in terms of I wasn't, involved in the sizing of that relative to the wood and the size of the wood pallets that they get delivered and how many of them. But I mean, as a sort of a lay perspective, if you look at how many of those racks are out there, this is actually a little better than the number and extent of the racks that are out there in terms of its position, size, and I know that they're dynamic, so they move around. This will create sort of a fixed situation for them. But I wasn't involved with the specific sizing in terms of that length, though. But they're like bays that are set up.
Yeah, I see the drawings. I mean, would 68 feet be possible?
I
Or is there a
don't
requirement for
think
some-
so, because I'm pretty sure between the owner and the architect, they chewed on this quite a bit, and went through a process to get to the point where they're sized at now, but they'd probably be better situated to speak to that.
Mr. Clark or Ms. Wolf, is this a custom-built, or is this a off-the-shelf system that's being installed for this?
No, I think it's going to be constructed.
Constructed,
Versus,
custom-built.
a prefab that's delivered.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
I have a question for our attorney. If they build this, what mechanism is there to stop them from putting back the racks back by the shop itself if their business expands?
So
Could add a condition.
Oh, I think a
one of the
condition,
conditions
yeah.
was that there wouldn't be any more outdoor storage on the property, so we would,
We stipulate to that still.
we would impose that condition, so if it's a violation, zoning officer can go and write violations.
It becomes like code enforcement.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Clark? Seeing none.
Just one
Oh,
small-
yes, Mr. Nearing, please.
Put a no parking sign.
Mr. Neary.
No parking sign in that turnaround space would just make it obvious there's nobody supposed to park there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easy to do, to add a no parking sign. I think we could agree to that.
Sure. Any questions from the public for this witness? Seeing none. Ms. Wolf, who's your next witness?
Mr. Albrecht. Just take a sworn.
All right, if you could raise your right hand when you're ready. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Glenn Albrecht, Albrecht.
Thank you. And can you briefly describe your background and experience for the board?
Sure, I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I have a Bachelor's of Architecture from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, a Master's of Architecture from Yale University, and 5 years active duty as a Naval Civil Engineer Corps officer.
Any questions from the board, or would you
You're
like?
licensed in good standing?
Good standing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or would you like to accept his credentials?
We would. Please proceed.
So, Mr. Albrecht, if you could just tell me a little bit about the differences between the prior approval and this current approval.
Sure. The biggest difference is the size of the existing shop. The previous approval, we were filling in basically the courtyard. And this presented a lot of challenges with the fire code. We were keeping the building non-sprinklered. So the biggest issues we were having was dealing with exit travel distance. We were forced to add a separate fire stair to cut down the exit travel distance and to provide a safe method of getting from the second floor out of the building. And it was having to take up shop space that would impact the functionality of the business. So with this current version, we take all of the wood storage, put it in an accessory structure, a separate shed. And then the work that we're doing to the shop is more cosmetic in nature and also to help with the functionality of the building itself right now. If we look at the house, the existing house, it's was constructed at the end of the Victorian period, 1900, in the Second Empire style. And the shop itself has a Second Empire style section of it, and this is characteristic because of the mansard roof. But adding on to that mass with the mansard roof is an eclectic mix of other additions that were done over the years. And it sort of rambles, and the goal of this project is to unify the shop building, make it a cohesive whole, and keep it in the same style as the main residence on the property.
Can you explain the purpose of the two additions to the shop?
Right, so the small addition, if I can see, the small two-story addition here is to house the existing forklift so that it's out of view and it has a place to be stored out of the weather. And then the second floor addition on this part of the shop is primarily to help the facade so we can get the roof to work with the existing large mansard roof. And it also provides a little bit more storage inside the shop so that yeah, so it doesn't go all the way to the ground, it's just on the second floor, this addition. And with the new roof that goes on top of this portion of the building, we'll get a little bit more headroom inside there and more clearance to better store the different species of lumber that the shop requires once they're taken out of the shed and brought into the shop.
Can you speak to the question about how the length of the storage shed came to be?
Right, well, we worked extensively with the owner, Aldo Curiali, on this. You know, he's been doing this for decades, and he knows exactly the lengths and species that are coming and going out of the shop. And it looks like a ramble of outdoor racks, but he knows exactly where everything is, the length of everything, and when it's coming and going. So with that knowledge, he was able to determine exactly how to store the wood in the length of that shed precisely so that he can separate different lengths, different species, and the frequency of the use of the different species. So it makes his work much more efficient, bringing the wood in and out of the shop.
Would it still function if it was smaller?
No, I mean, he's got it down to the inches.
The inch, okay.
Yeah.
And can you also describe the changes to the dwelling?
Right, so on the main house, The only thing we're changing is there's an existing bay window on the driveway side of the property, and it's a one-story bay. We're removing this bay just to give more clearance for deliveries and movement of the lumber out of the wood shed into the shop. And then we'll replace that one-story bay with a double-hung window that matches the other double-hung window that's existing on that facade.
Can you talk to whether you think the improvements are consistent with the neighborhood and the site itself?
Yeah, it's actually going to be a lot better looking than it is now, because it'll be a cohesive whole with the principal residence on the structure. The roof lines will match, the materials will match, the colors will match. You know, the idea is that we want Summit Moore to be known as Aldo and Son and not Sanford and Son.
With that, I don't think I have any further questions for you.
Any questions from our board experts for this witness?
I do not have any questions.
Mr. Lyon?
Neither do I, Mr.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions from the board? Jay?
Can you go into the design of the actual shed itself, and how does that juxtaposition against the Victorian second?
Right, so it's, because it's right up against the property, we have less than 5-foot separation with the property line, so it has to be 2-hour rated wall assembly. So that's why we're using CMU, but then we're cladding it with
Can you just explain what CMU is?
concrete masonry unit, concrete block. And then we're going to clad that with cedar clapboards to match the house and the shop. And they'll all be painted in the same color. And we've added some elements basically on the front of the building. We've added a false door, so it looks like an entrance. And it has a very small visual impact on the street because it is only 8 foot 8 wide. And we'll add, you know, it'll be the same materials used on the roof as the shop and the house.
I have two questions. One, relating to the fire code. Is there, you know, any need for sprinklering in this building? Are you confident that you're not going, and if not, you're confident that fire code is not going to hold up construction in this round?
Yes, that's correct. We're under the limits for the sprinkler system with the building type. And then we can meet, with the existing stair now, we can meet the travel distance. So I can get you out of the building from the second floor in 87 feet, where the code requires 100 feet for an S1 storage occupancy on the second floor. And we only, because there's only a limited number of people on the second floor, it calculates out to 500 square feet per gross square foot area per occupant. So we only need the one exit, so we can use the existing stair as the exit. And as long as I can meet that minimum travel distance out the door and onto the driveway, we'll be fine.
Okay, and this was reviewed with the fire chief, I assume, before?
fire chief did.
He did review it, so I didn't see a comment. Second one is about the existing home. You mentioned that things would be painted, that, you know, the new building would be painted to match. Is the facade of the home going to be sanded and painted? That's,
I don't know when the last time it was painted. Yeah, it will be painted.
okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Any questions from the public for this witness? Seeing none.
That's all I have. So the next time I call, Mr. Topia.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Michael Tobia, T-O-B-I-A, applicant's planning consultant.
Thank you, and I know you've been before us a number of times as well, including recently. Any changes to your credentials since the last time you were
No.
here?
No, sir.
I imagine we'll accept you back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody. I'll start by saying I've never heard Sanford and Son mentioned as a variance proof before in my 40 years of practice.
No one used that line last time either. Yeah.
So let's, we got maybe 15 minutes, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll be through, but what I want to do is walk you through the property And we're going to go to an exhibit here. Let's see if I got this right. That's okay. So, Mr. Ball, we're going to go A1. I'll give you a hard copy if you all want.
That'd be great.
With today's date on it, and it is a PowerPoint I put together with 12 pages to it, okay, previously marked.
Thank you.
This is, as you know, 235 Morris LLC. We did some photos on this on March 20th of this year. And let's just go through quickly what we have. Bear with me, I'm not used to using my laptop like this. 235 Morris, at the front of the property is a two-family home. Dates back, as you heard, 1900, Victorian style. Side-by-side units, two-bedroom units in each. This is a permitted use in the R5 zone. Also on the site is the Curiel family's workshop. The good news is it's at the back of the house. So when you drive by this property, if you were looking for the workshop, it would be really hard to see. The rub, as you see here in slide 3, is all the storage on the site now on the west side of the building. There are stacks of lumber storage, 12 feet wide, 20 feet deep, about 12 feet high. And storage has existed on this site since 1977 in various ways. It's tarped, it's unsightly. It is a little bit of Sanford and Son. This whole application started about 6 years ago when Krista Anderson went out to the site and said, hey guys, we got to do something about storage. That's how the first application 5 years ago got started. It was with Krista saying, you're not supposed to have storage in a residential zone. The workshop has been certified by this board twice over as a legally existing non-conforming use. It's not going to go away. We know that Curiel family is widely respected in the world of woodworking, and so we have to recognize it's allowed to stay. The core question for the board is, do you want it to stay as you see it in slide 3, or do we want to fix it up and take all this outdoor storage and put it indoors? It's basically the whole case here. So at the back of the property, slide 4 is the workshop. You see that with the cupola in the back and the open doors. Forklift is in this picture. Forklift, as you heard, will go indoors with the new app when it is built. Slide 6. Here what I did was, or slide 5 I should say, I put the workshop behind me and shot a picture out at Morris Avenue. So you see Morris Avenue running across this photo from left to right. The moral of the story is a lot of this storage is plainly visible from Morris. I know board members see it. It's hard to avoid. So one public benefit clearly of the job is to get all this off the streetscape and have an architectural grade shed to hide most of it and the addition on the building to hide the rest of it. If you go inside the building, you realize this is a world-class woodworking operation. They've done work for the governor's residence in Trenton, done work for the mayor's office in this building, Madison Hotel, and many of the residential properties throughout the region. This is what it looks like inside. Slide 7 shows some of the specialty trim boards and woodworking machines in the building. All this, of course, still stays inside when the project is built out. Now, what we did, and I was on the original app with Mr. Sheehan from Amanda's office 5 years ago, what we did back then was get approved a large addition to the existing building. 2,827 square feet of addition, a little bit upstairs, but mostly on the footprint on the ground level. The idea was to put all the storage in this building. It was at that time to be maxed out to get as much storage on the site as possible and as much space on the site as possible. This job eventually, as you heard, ran into all kinds of problems with fire suppression as we went to permitting. So that 2,800 square foot addition becomes the new case. On the next slide, that is a 613 square foot shed. As you heard, precisely dimensioned for the needs of the storage on the site by Aldo, as well as the two small additions previously described by our witnesses. Front addition for forklift storage, back addition, second floor only for more storage. And then the shed runs along the westerly property line in a location where Mr. Clark put it so that we could still use the driveway for circulation. Cars can still go through, forklifts can still go through, trucks can still go through. We always had a turnaround at the front of the property. Coverage goes up here only slightly because a little landscape strip along the side of the existing two-family home is removed to improve storage once that bay window is removed, bay window being shown thus more or less dead center on the slide. So the overarching application in 2020 was remove all outdoor storage. That goal is met here with the new application. Everything I said back then can be said now. The purpose of this is to get the existing non-conforming use more compatible with residential uses in the area. Basically, all residential uses in the area are owned by the hospital, by the way. Two-family homes and some singles as well. But to get everything inside makes it more compatible with the residential neighborhood. Your 2016 master plan cited by Mr. Leiden's report says preserve residential areas, avoid conflict between non-residential and residential, create transition zones between non-res and residential, and that's what's being done here. All our bulk variances, which Amanda went through before, have been reduced in scope since 2020, some by a little bit, building coverage by a lot because our building went down so much in size. And they can all be justified by this overarching goal, which was to get storage inside the building. The side yard setback request now is 2 feet for the shed on the westerly property line. That's to keep the shed out of the driveway. If we put it in the middle of the driveway, we wouldn't be able to get material into the building, we wouldn't be able to park, and we wouldn't be able to use the forklift. Floor area ratio remains a variance, but again, the idea here is a lesser increase in building coverage to achieve our outdoor storage. If we're going to eliminate it, we have to add rooftop to the site to hide the storage. Impervious coverage only goes up slightly, but it's basically the same as 2020. Building coverage goes down. And again, when you look at our case law under Burbridge, as well as our case law under the pooling case, the idea is look at overall project benefits while recognizing the use is not going to wither and die the way some non-conforming uses do, but it's going to stay here, and you have to make your choice. Do you want to stay and look like a mess, or do you want to stay and look really good? We think that answer is easy. So we have gone over the architecture of the shed. I don't want to steal our architect's thunder because we forgot to put up the rendering, but he prepared a rendering of the site. And hold on a second, please. So this is the final slide, 11, sheet 11. Here is the two-family home on the right of this slide, Victorian in character, real nice contributing structure to the neighborhood, and then shed, left-hand side, westerly side of the property, and you can see architecturally, same color, same trim boards, roof pitch, complemented as best we could the existing home on the site, as well as the workshop in the back, which you can see in the background, and does have the same basic Victorian characteristics.
Do you zoom in on that just a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Good. Mm-hmm. By the way, the street sign, back in 2020, the board said we don't want a separate sign. We're not giving you a separate sign. All we're doing is giving you an address identifier, 235 Morris will be on that sign, on that lamppost. Any questions on that, Mr. Chairman, or?
I have one. On the,
Hold on. Have you concluded your testimony?
No, I just thought you had a specific question about the Zoom, so if you don't, I'll continue.
No, just continue, and we'll ask you
Okay.
questions at the end.
So, anyway, we meet this Supreme Court case, which is called Burbridge v. Mine Hill, which basically says, if you're gonna fix things up, fix them up substantially. And if you're gonna expand a non-conforming use, don't triple the size of it. We, as a planning and legal community, will tolerate minor increases in size of non-conforming uses, but don't go nuts and make the workshop 5 stories tall or something like that. In this case, what we've done here is a addition of about 12% of the existing workshop, minor by any reasonable standard. So we meet the Burbridge test there. Burbridge says if you're gonna make aesthetic improvements, they can't just be about prettying up a building, but they must be substantial. And that's what we've done here architecturally, and most notably by finally hiding all the wood supplies inside. Burbridge also says you must promote one or more purposes of the municipal land use law. Here we promote goals A, C, G, I, and M. Most notably promoting a desirable visual environment, which we've talked about a bunch, and the more efficient use of land. Okay. Now, everything before you has to achieve your negative criteria, which means a finding by the board that this shed and the 2 other additions are not a substantial detriment to the public good, nor a substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of your zone plan. Okay. Here, first of all, it's not substantial. It's a pretty small addition. Shed's pretty slim left to right, so as you drive by it, it's going to be subordinated by the other buildings in the area. And it makes the R5 zone better if we recognize the use is not going to go away. We will meet every condition in the 2020 resolution, including, I think it was mentioned, items 8 through 13. If you want, I'll go through those, but all of those will be met, as well as standard conditions that you all put into your resolution, which were also included back in 2020. And we're also, I think we've done this already, right, Amanda? But we're going to take our drawings, when we have construction drawings, to the fire department and make sure we're all okay on code analysis, fire separation, egress plans, and so on. Okay, that'll be an architectural responsibility. I think that's all I got.
Mr. Doherty, can you just speak to the D4, can the site accommodate the excess FAR?
So we have the FAR variance, and our law on that says the planning test should be, can the site accept the overage on FAR and the problems normally associated with that? The answer is yes. First of all, our FAR is much less than it was in 2020. Here, because of the good architecture and its placement on the side of the property, we don't see a lot of problems with this. And certainly when you compare this to a plan that continued to have outdoor storage all over the side yard, this is the preferred zoning alternative.
And I think it would be helpful if you just went through those conditions for the board.
I'm going to do that, okay. So our resolution from 2020 had 17 conditions. A lot of them were standard ones. Item 7, first of all, says we'll comply with your engineer's report, and we will continue to do that, as well as Mr. Leiden's report, which was submitted, I think, on June 3rd. The truck to be parked outside is to be no bigger than a 25-foot box truck and must be parked alongside the building, is never to be forward on the driveway. We agree, we'll just carry that forward. Site signage we've talked about, that's condition 9. It will be limited only to that lamppost identifier. 10 says broadly, all storage of materials, including unfinished wood, shall be stored inside the building. There shall be no exterior storage of materials outside the building. We agree, that's the whole purpose of the application. Item 12, there shall be no more than 4 employees. We agree. Item 13, all offloading of unfinished wood or other materials shall be confined to the site. No offloading of unfinished wood or other materials related to production shall take place on Sayre Street. This applicant owns another building on Sayre Street, which historically has had a little back and forth with the forklift. That will no longer take place. That's what this condition 13 was about back in 2020. Okay. 14, all exterior mechanical equipment shall be located on the roof. We agree, that's testimony. 15, one truck shall be permitted to remain on site when not in service. No additional commercial vehicles may be stored on the site. We agree. 16 says we have to confer with the city forester. City forester's already been out to the site. Basically what he said is you don't need to do anything. We do have one new tree proposed on the site plan to replace the one that's coming down. We're going to leave it up to him as to what type of tree that should be. If you want this condition in there still, we'll comply. And 17 is just about publication of notice of this decision, should the board approve the application.
Thank you.
And then beyond that, we agree to a no parking sign in front. You got that? And what was the other one?
No.
Someone, I just got called to the table, and there was another condition mentioned just before I got called.
I didn't have one
I
noted.
started writing the home will.
I think we're good with those.
Be painted? Was that? with
The home will be
painting? The home
painted.
will be painted,
There you
yeah.
go. Thank you.
I have a question.
Let's have the board experts first, and then we'll
Okay.
do.
And I do just want to briefly note while we're talking about the conditions, I know there was the comment that our engineer's memorandum does say the dry well will be relocated, so obviously our usual condition will accept that relocation.
Thank you. Don't call it out as a variance or an exception or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I don't believe it's a variance, but we'll note that in the resolution.
Thank you.
If I have a question about clarifying one of those conditions, now or after the board experts?
We'll do these guys first, and then
Okay.
we'll get that clarification.
I do have one question about the cupola, Mike. And I thought because it was, it looks rather prominent on the back building. And there's also a height limitation on that, which seems not to have counted the very top spindle to the cupola. So is that the existing cupola that's there now, or is there a proposed cupola?
Let's, let me have the architect come up and answer that, okay? Let me say first, usually, first of all, it's nice to see you again, Mr. Leiden.
It's been a while.
It's been quite a while. Usually, we recognize cupolas should be exempt from height restrictions because they're so small. You know, they don't have the height and width of the whole building. But let me, I know the answer, but let me have the architect come up, if you don't mind, and answer that.
Yeah, and I believe our code does exempt them as well, and I think you're pulling up the section.
Yeah.
I did. But there
Yes.
is, I'm allowed to speak to this.
Yes.
It says, it's in the height, says that those are exempt, except that it shall not exceed 15 feet in height, nor exceed the permitted building height for the zone by more than 8 feet. And when I'm looking at the architect plan, I just can't tell how big that spire is on top. There's a belfry, and it talks about, or the cupola, it talks about the cupola being about 13 feet tall, I think. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to exceed the 8 feet plus the 35, because the roof, the ridge line right now on the new roof is 30 feet.
Okay.
So we'll be under the 35 plus 8 for the maximum allowable height for the cupola. It is a new cupola. There is one there now, but on the old roof, and it's lower, so this one is going to be new and placed on top of the new roof.
So you're saying that it's going to comply with?
It will comply, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Zahn, I believe you had a
Before we,
I don't know if Marie had any other questions.
I had no other questions.
Yeah.
I have one other question, that was related to the sign. I saw that there was a reference in the 2020 resolution, but it didn't call it a size. It just talked about what was going to be on it.
Right.
So, is there a thought as to what the size of that address would be? And in the same question, if I might, the architectural plan calls for a number on the building of the shed building, the front elevation of that shed. I know it's not a sign in the sense it doesn't advertise a product or a business.
Right.
But I just wanted to call that the board's attention to that, so it didn't be classified as a second sign.
You know, usually, Mr. Lyden, with address signs, which our emergency service people love, we don't consider them signs. You'll see the little, if you could squiggle the pointer, please, that's right on the sign right now. Right there is that existing sign. I don't believe any dimensions were required back in 2020. We'll put up whatever you want. The big thing back then was we didn't want advertising in the residential zone saying Summit, Millwork Supply, and so on.
So the sign that's shown on the rendering is the existing sign, which is to continue?
Yeah, leave it, Mr. Lyden, yep, just like
That's
that.
correct, that's
And
the
it-
existing sign.
And it is called out on the plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Those are the questions I had, Mr. Chairman.
before you, just as long as the architect's here, so on your drawings, it shows a door on the shed.
Yeah, that's
facing
correct.
straight.
We've updated the drawings since this rendering was done. We added more detail to the front of that to make it look like an entrance. So it was more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood.
Very good.
So for the truck parking condition, I wanted to kind of specify what that means, that where is it going to be parked? Just because when I was there today, the truck was parked right next to the house. And, I mean, somebody might consider that the back of the property because it's past where the house starts. I think that should be a little more, I have a feeling that they mean past the back of the house, but it's not really clear by that condition. And seeing as we don't allow commercial vehicles to be parked overnight in Summit, if we do allow this, we do want it to be out of sight.
We agree.
I think just to kind of specify that condition a little bit more.
So how would you word that, Andy? What do you think?
Are we talking about a particular distance, I guess, from the
Well, I
building
mean,
that you
there
wanna
was
limit
some mention that maybe it was going to be parked kind of by where where it says the existing storage racks are in the back. I mean, I don't know if that. So the rear of the driveway. Yeah.
We would agree to it being parked to the rear of the home, meaning up against the workshop.
Okay.
Your concern is that's not parked in the front yard, right?
Yeah, I mean, the further back it is, the less visible it is when you drive by, right? So,
So
The rear of the home is acceptable.
yeah.
behind the home is an acceptable condition? Okay.
And then the rendering here shows the shed coming, it appears, and it could be an optical illusion, but it appears that it's coming forward of the neighboring house, but on the site plan, it shows it set back from not just the porch, but the front of that house. So I'm just wondering about, can you clarify?
Yeah,
that?
it'll match the drawings. I mean, this was done in Photoshop and manipulating the existing photo, so it may not be as clear as it is on the drawings, but for sure it will match the drawings in its position.
Okay. And then one more question about parking. The 3 parking spaces. So you have one, assuming one is by the truck, right? That counts as one space. So then there's 2 other parking spaces. Given that this is a residential home, I don't know if anyone else on the board feels this way, but like people live here, they have to bring groceries in the rain, they have potentially children. I'd like to see those 2 parking spaces used for the residents, and then the employees use the parking as some other, contractors in town rent and park at the middle school. It just seems to me that if this is zoned residential, it should come with some parking for the residents.
I think it's tandem. the parking's tandem, I believe.
No, but there's no residential parking. The residents are parking at the middle school.
But I think the
right, by
difference
permit.
is that they park there overnight, where the employees would have to park in the parking lot during the day when school's in. During the summer is a different story, but I don't know what the parking is in the school lot during the school season.
Well, so
You
where
can
do
get
they?
permit, there's
Okay, yeah.
spots allocated for permit
Okay,
parking.
I didn't know that.
Separate from school parking.
Then I stand corrected. Thank you.
Oh, because, I mean, even during the day, it's only 2-hour parking on the
Mm-hmm.
street, so, I don't know. To just,
So
that's
if I
just
may,
my
Ms.
thought,
Zahn,
yeah.
the problem is if we have our tenants park on the site and they stay home all day, we're going to have a constant problem with the conflict between, let's say, the forklift operations or the movement of lumber or commercial visitors to the site. Those tenants now get permits and they park in the school lot, and that works out without conflict with the commercial use. But with that said, we'll do whatever you want on this, we'll make it work, but there's been a reason historically why the tenants have parked off-site. How many cars you have? Each have one car? Let me channel that through you, okay?
Yeah, through the microphone. Yeah.
Right. So the front area that's being added, 16 feet wide, 30 feet deep, my client just said we would allow that to be used by tenants for unloading groceries and so on, loading up their cars on a temporary basis to be convenient for them, and then they could shove off and go on their way. That might be a nice compromise.
Okay, thank you.
I have questions while the architect's back up here. Why a new cupola? Can't you restore, I mean, it is a millwork place, can't they restore the old one? Historic one?
It's a little undersized for the size of the roof. This is actually designed by the owner.
Oh, okay. And then the doors, I don't really understand. When you said the doors, I thought you meant on the first level. Why are the doors on the wood shop look like they're on the second floor?
Second floor, so that the forklift can bring the lumber up to the storage section of the shop and offload onto the second floor directly.
Okay.
And vice versa, to bring lumber down into the mill shop from the second floor.
Okay, and that's the best way to do it, to have it look like a door? I mean, is there any
Yeah.
other? Okay.
Yeah. We need the size so that the double door works well.
And then I had just something to say about the no parking sign. I think the front, we want to make sure it still stays looking residential. I wouldn't want to see a pole with a no parking sign. I mean, if it's a little, spray painted on the, or whatever, just something else, something like more, so that you would do more for, in a residential area. I don't want it to look like a parking lot.
Especially with the historic home.
Are you guys good with that? All right, Andy, can we amend that?
Sorry, I didn't hear what the comment was. So you want to paint something on the,
No, just something that it looks like, something like, somebody has like a little sign.
Like you could
no
paint the
parking.
curb to
Yeah.
say no
Less
parking. or-
obtrusive.
Yeah, so
Right.
not a.
A commercial-looking sign in a residential area.
yeah,
I
that's
think
a
is-
good suggestion.
Yep.
Actually, I have a question for the architect. We had talked briefly about the architectural design of the storage shed. Is there a reason why you didn't go with a mansard roof versus, blending it in? Because right now, this rendering, it looks like an
Yeah,
afterthought of adding that.
well, it's because it's so narrow. We can't really get a mansard roof on that narrow of a facade. So we were just looking at, the same pitch as the pediment on the shop building. And the same pitch is roughly the front porch of the house. It's just, we're trying to keep the scale down on that structure. And because it's so narrow, it's gonna look really top-heavy if you start going vertical with the roof.
I have one more question about the storage. And I know that there was a lot of testimony that everything would be brought inside. When I was walking through today, it seemed to me that the full length of the area where storage would occur is currently being used for outside storage. And in addition, you have the areas where the existing storage racks are, And then in front of the storage racks along the side of the house, there are some kind of, looks like contractor bags that are stored with some material. The width in one area where, let's see, it's some kind of like, almost like a temporary shed, the canvas shed, and then there's storage outside of that too. So it's quite a bit of exterior storage now. I just want to make sure that everything's going to fit. And I know maybe the plan is to have a little less lumber than what is there now, or is all of this, can you just explain that to make sure that we're not going to come and that this is all going to be built and then later it turns out there's not enough room, or, it just seemed like there was an awful lot there today.
Right, I mean, that is another reason why we have that new second floor addition and the much larger roof, so he can get a lot more storage up there than he's currently getting up there. So a combination of the new second floor area, the larger roof, and the storage shed will take everything off of the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for this witness?
Just to follow up on that, right next to right behind the concrete patio, it's referenced as storage rack under eave. Is that gonna remain? Is that
No,
gone?
that's going away.
Okay.
That's going away.
Okay. Any questions from the public for this witness? Seeing none. Okay. Ms. Wolf?
I have no further witnesses unless the board has any questions for Aldo or Nick Curiale.
I don't believe so. Any questions for the applicant? I don't think so, Ms. Wolf.
So that would be my last witness, and I won't belabor a conclusion. I will just say, as you've heard through all this testimony, the goal is really to make this a beautiful site, to put all the outdoor storage in the shed, so it will be more attractive than it is currently. It will be functional, and it will work. As we heard, millwork is not going anywhere, especially the quality of what they do. It's amazing. It's in important buildings all around the state. This is not going anywhere, and this is a great way to make the site much prettier and much more attractive. With that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Before we enter into executive session, we'll see if there's any public comment at this time. Seeing none? All right, Mr. Ball, you're
All right,
up.
So we have quite a few conditions. First, compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum, except for the relocation of the dry well. Second, as we were just discussing, the painted curb or other messaging, but no signs, will be added to the turnaround area to reflect that it is not to be used for parking. And I know they also offered that the tenants in the residential structure may temporarily park in that area for brief access to the residents. And is that acceptable?
Loading and unloading, yes.
Okay. Third, the applicants will repaint the existing residential structure. And then I'll just, I won't belabor the point, I'll note that all conditions 8 through 15, with the exception of 11, which was not necessarily a condition, will be incorporated into this resolution of approval.
Is it, just given, and I realize what happened in 2020 with the fire code, but is it possible to add a condition that is, if this is not constructed by a certain time, then the allowance for outdoor storage just, it's not allowed after a certain point? I don't know,
No, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, they can continue to use it. So if this resolution lapses, then it just reverts to the status of the property, and they're not abandoning it, and this approval would go away, but that pre-existing non-conformity would not go away.
is there something that can be, just because this is a residential neighborhood, it's a non-conforming use. 6 years ago, Krista Anderson came and said, you need to do something about this. I believe it's, a violation of the sort of the residential zone. And I appreciate all the effort that has been put here, but I kind of, it's 6 years later now, and everything's still out there. And 6 years ago, the residents came out in support of, yes, please get this out. So is there anything that can sort of capture that?
Well, I mean, I think if it's technically a violation then, it's technically a violation now.
Right.
I don't think the rules have changed. So I think that the city could engage in some kind of enforcement if they wanted to.
Except that there was a, there
Yeah.
were permit plans,
Yeah.
so I guess, okay.
Okay. And we have some Ds on this, so we're gonna need 5 affirmative. Is
5
that-
votes.
Okay, great. With that, let's get into executive session. Team, what do you got?
Do we need, there was no comments, right?
No comments? No.
Okay.
As an avid walker, someone who lives not too far away, and also a member of the Summit Community Garden, I can hardly support this application since what's there now is an eyesore, and I'd rather see this. So.
I too can support this. I appreciate, first of all, having a family business in Summit and having this continue through generations. I think that's a nice reflection of our community and our town, and something that, we want to encourage. I think that's, meets some of our objectives. I also appreciate the efforts to maintain the architecture or actually improve it, make it a little more cohesive, to paint the building and give the whole site a better look, not just the storage. So I think this is an overall improvement for the neighborhood. So.
Yeah, Scott?
Tom?
Just add a little bit to that. I think that getting the wood covered or stored is such a big improvement. I've we've probably all driven by it for decades. Well, I've been in town for decades, but to see that finally happen would be such a positive for the neighborhood and overall community. So I think that's a big positive. The variance can be granted without a substantial negative impact to the neighborhood. In fact, I think it's an improvement, big positive for the neighborhood. The FAR, the site can accommodate the property, and it'll be nice to see something finally happen. Like I said, we approved this 5 years ago, and after a year, Steven Spur and I used to joke, yep, they still haven't started the work. So we knew he'd be coming back. And I'm just happy to see it. I'm happy, hope we're going to approve it again, and hopefully it actually happens. I guess they have 2 years now to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah, I can support this enthusiastically.
Yeah, I can support this application. It does definitely improve the site visualization as you drive by and for the neighborhood. I know they have a challenge where they are, and I think they're doing the best they can to handle it and make it a much better improvement.
I have to say, I hate this plan. I think it's really frustrating, but I get it. I understand. There's really no other solution. Racking my brain trying to figure out what could be done here, and I applaud the applicant for making the best of a very difficult situation. I would love to see this shed completely disappear from the driveway, but there really is no alternative, I believe. So they've already recognized that, and the steps that they're taking to improve the way they operate their business and to finally deal with this storage issue is obviously a public benefit. So with that, I can definitely support it. Don't love it, but I will support it. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Jessica, can you call the roll, please?
Vice Chair Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, Yes. Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Feskins.
Yes.
And Chairman Loikitz.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jessica, we got some business.
I save a bunch of them.
So the first resolution that we have for memorialization is 20 Van Dyke Place, which is zoning board application number 252283. The eligible members to vote are Chairman Loikitz, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Chifo, Mr. Curran, and Mr. Nearing. Can we get a motion? So moved. Chairman Loikitz,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, Yes. Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
and Mr. Nearing.
Yes.
Thank you. The next one is 11 Plain Street, which is zoning board application number 2121172. The eligible members to vote are Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Chifo, Mr. Curran, and Mr. Nearing. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
Chairman Loiketz,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
and Mr. Nearing.
Yes.
Next up is 45 Franklin Place, which is zoning board application number 242274. The eligible members to vote are Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Chifo, Mr. Curran, and Mr. Nearing. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Chairman Loiketz,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
and Mr. Nearing.
Yes.
Thank you. And the last one is 9 Stony Hill Court, zoning board application number 242275. The eligible members to vote are Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Chifo, Mr. Curran, and Mr. Nearing. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Chairman Loiketz?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
and Mr. Nearing.
Yes.
That was good.
The minutes from June 2nd, 2025 are not yet ready. They will be made available for memorialization at the next zoning board meeting on July 7th, 2025.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say
Aye.
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 Thank you, team.